All right, so we're diving into something pretty interesting today.
Yeah, this should be fun.
We're going to be looking at how to make conversations just, well, more captivating.
Hmm.
And we're basing this deep dive on Dave Riker's Speed Seduction Language and Conversation course.
Oh, wow. Okay, that title.
I know. It sounds a little, maybe a bit out there.
Yeah.
But, I went through it, and there's actually some really good stuff in there for, well, anyone who wants to improve their conversations.
Right.
Not just, for the speed seduction aspect of it.
I mean, I think one of the most interesting things Riker talks about is the whole idea of cool. Like, so many people, try to play it cool,
Mm-hmm.
but he makes this distinction between being cool and cold.
Oh, interesting.
Like, you can be reserved and, try to appear calm and collected,
Yeah.
but it can actually backfire.
Right.
You end up just seeming distant or boring.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, nobody wants to talk to the person who's just, like, completely shut down.
I've definitely met those people, like, where you just feel like you can't get through to them.
Exactly.
So what does he say? Like, what's the solution?
Well, he talks about how true charisma, real charisma, comes from this balance, right? Like, you're relaxed, you're chill,
Mm.
but you also know how to, like, dial up the energy when it matters.
Oh, I see.
And what's really cool is that he actually demonstrates this in the course. Like, he'll play with his own voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he'll, like, speak from his nose, and then he'll speak from his chest.
Wow.
And it totally changes, like, how confident and energetic he sounds.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a really simple thing, but it's, like, super effective.
I mean, you wouldn't think something like that would make such a difference.
Right.
But I guess, like, the way you use your voice can really change how people perceive you.
Totally.
It made me think about, those people you meet them sometimes who are just naturally magnetic.
Yeah.
Like, they have this kind of calm energy.
Yeah.
But they also know how to get, like, excited and really draw you in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're not afraid to show their passion,
Yeah.
So it's like you have that inner fire,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also, like, in control of it.
That's it. That's the balance he's talking about.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And this actually leads right into, like, one of Riker's big points.
What's that?
This idea of the power of your voice.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's not just what you say.
Right.
It's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes into, like, tone and pacing and even, like, poses.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I gotta say, I usually tune it out.
Oh, yeah.
It just sounds like, generic self-help stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
that-
speak clearly, make eye contact.
Right.
But does he, like, go beyond that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Like, for example, when he talks about speaking from your chest,
Mm-hmm.
he's not just talking about projecting your voice.
No.
He's talking about creating this more resonant, calming effect.
Mm.
Like, think about, those powerful speakers you've heard.
Yeah.
They rarely sound, like, nasally or strained,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's true.
There's the difference between just, like, shouting
Mm-hmm.
and actually commanding attention with your voice.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
They're like a weight to their words.
It's like-
not just about volume.
And then he gets into pacing and pausing.
Okay.
And Roker's argument is that, like, varying your speed
Mm-hmm.
and using pauses strategically, it adds, like, drama
Oh, interesting.
and intrigue.
So you're like creating a little mystery.
Exactly. You keep people on the edge of their seats wondering what you're going to say next.
I like that.
And he even gives these examples of how the same phrase, like, let's say, I can't believe that happened.
Mm-hmm.
It can sound totally different,
Yeah?
depending on whether you say it quickly and excitedly or slowly and with confusion.
Okay, yeah, I can hear that.
Right. Like, one is like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened.
Right.
And the other is like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, that changes the whole mood.
Totally.
Like you're telling two completely different stories.
And then there's this thing he talks about,
What's that?
enthusiasm. He says enthusiasm is contagious. Like, literally contagious.
Oh, I've heard that.
He'll, like, demonstrate how the same phrase delivered with genuine energy
Yeah.
can completely change the vibe of an interaction.
Okay, but what about those times when you're just stuck talking about something boring?
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you actually fake enthusiasm?
Well, Riker actually addresses that head on.
He does.
Yeah. He actually suggests that, like, lack of enthusiasm can be a tool.
Really?
Yeah, you can use it to subtly steer the conversation away from topics you find dull.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
Right.
it's like you're not being rude or anything,
No, not at all.
but you're just not giving them the energy they need to keep going down that road.
Exactly.
Smart. Okay, so we've got this, confident voice, but how do we actually make sure the conversation is going in a direction we want?
Good question.
Yeah,
That's what we're going to get into next.
let's do it.
Riker calls it conversational management. It's all about subtly guiding the flow without being obvious or forceful about it.
I'm ready to learn how to do that. So we've talked about like projecting confidence and having this like genuine energy in our voice.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we, actually steer conversation towards topics that are interesting?
Right. Yeah.
Not like mind-numbingly boring stuff?
Well, Riker introduces this idea of what he calls conversational management.
Okay.
It's all about kind of subtly guiding the flow of the conversation
Okay.
without being like obvious or forceful about it.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? Like
Yeah.
without seeming manipulative?
Yeah, you don't want to be like, okay, we're talking about this now.
Right, exactly.
One of the techniques he talks about is something called linking.
Linking.
Linking, yeah. It's about like seamlessly connecting seemingly unrelated topics in a way that feels natural and engaging.
Okay, I'm not sure I get it. Like, can you give me an example?
Sure. So let's say you're talking about cars.
Okay.
You could start by like discussing different types of cars, then maybe talk about performance, then powerful engines, then transition to the price of gasoline, right?
Okay. I mean, that sounds like kind of a normal conversation, to be honest.
Right, but here's the key. The key is to use linking phrases
Okay.
to subtly guide the conversation towards, a more desirable topic.
Okay.
So instead of jumping from gas prices to like something random,
Yeah.
you could say something like, it's funny how the price of gas always seems to go up right before a vacation. Speaking of vacations, have you ever been on a trip that like really took you out of your comfort zone?
Oh, okay. Okay, I see what you're doing.
Right.
You're creating this like bridge between the two topics.
Exactly.
But in a way that feels natural and interesting.
Right. And notice how the question at the end like opens up the conversation.
Right, to something more like personal, engaging.
Exactly. And Riker really emphasizes making those transitions like as smooth as possible.
So it's not about like forcing the conversation,
No.
but more like gently nudging it towards something more interesting.
That's it, yeah.
Doesn't that take like a lot of practice though?
It does, but Riker argues that the more you like experiment with these linking phrases, the more natural they become.
Okay.
It's like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
He also talks about something called fractionation, right?
Yes, fractionation.
What is that all about?
That's a good one.
It sounds kind of like intense.
Fractionation is definitely a more advanced technique,
Okay.
but it's super interesting.
Okay.
It builds on the idea of linking,
Uh-huh.
but instead of just connecting topics, you're taking the listener on an emotional roller coaster.
An emotional roller coaster. I'm intrigued.
Right.
How does that work?
Okay, so imagine you're telling a story about a vacation.
Okay.
You might start by describing like a relaxing day at the beach, then suddenly shift to a moment of like excitement or even fear,
Okay.
like a close encounter with a shark or something.
Gotcha.
Then you transition back to a feeling of like relief and joy,
Yay.
ending the story on a high note.
So you're basically like keeping people on the edge of their seats
Exactly.
by switching between different emotions?
Yeah, it's like creating this mini drama within the conversation.
I like it.
And Riker emphasizes that you can use this for more than just like telling exciting stories. You can use it to deepen your connection with someone.
So I could like start by talking about something lighthearted and then shift to something more serious
Yeah.
and then end on a positive note.
Exactly.
That's cool.
But just like with linking, those transitions need to feel natural.
Right. You don't want to like shock the other person.
No, it's not about that.
It's about creating this like captivating flow.
Exactly.
So how does all of this tie back to like Riker's idea of retraining your subconscious?
Right.
It seems like that was a big part of like the beginning of the course.
That's what I find so brilliant about Riker's approach.
Okay.
He doesn't just like give you these techniques as a list of things to memorize.
Yeah.
He gives you a ton of exercises and assignments that encourage you to like actually practice them in real conversation.
It's like he's saying, don't just learn this stuff, live it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He wants you to like internalize these techniques until they become automatic.
Okay.
He compares it to learning a musical instrument.
Okay. I'm listening.
So think about like the first time you tried to play a chord on a guitar.
Yeah.
It probably felt awkward and unnatural, right?
Oh, yeah.
You had to think about every movement.
Yeah, for sure.
But with practice, those movements eventually become automatic.
Right.
You can just play.
Yeah, it becomes like second nature.
Exactly. And so Riker's saying, like, with practice, these conversational techniques can become as natural as breathing.
Wow, that's a great analogy.
And he argues that, like, as you get better at managing conversations, you'll start to see opportunities to use these techniques that you wouldn't have noticed before.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Right.
The more you practice, the better you get. And the better you get, the more opportunities you see to practice.
And that's where the real transformation happens.
Okay.
Like, as these techniques become second nature, you'll find yourself, like, effortlessly steering conversations, creating connections, and leaving a lasting impression on people.
That's pretty powerful.
Right.
It makes me wonder, though, what about, like, choosing the right topics? Like, how do you pick topics that are interesting without seeming like you're trying too hard?
Riker addresses that too.
He does.
He says that the topics you choose, like, have a huge impact on how people perceive you. One of his strategies is what he calls finding the emotional hook.
Emotional hook.
Emotional hook, yeah.
What does that mean?
So he argues that every topic, even something as mundane as, like, traffic, has an emotional element.
Okay.
The key is to find that emotional hook and use it to make the topic more relatable.
I'm not sure I follow. Like, how do you find an emotional hook in a conversation about traffic?
Okay, well, think about how traffic makes you feel.
Frustrated.
Right. Powerless, trapped, frustrated.
Yeah.
Most people can relate to those feelings, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So instead of just complaining about being stuck in traffic, you can use those emotions to steer the conversation towards a more interesting topic.
Okay.
Like the importance of freedom and spontaneity in life, for example.
I see what you're saying. It's not just about the topic itself.
Right.
It's about finding a way to connect it to something, like, deeper.
Exactly. And Riker stresses that the more you practice finding these emotional hooks, the more you'll start to see the world through a new lens.
So it's about turning, like, everyday experiences into opportunities for, like, meaningful conversations.
Exactly.
I like that.
So what other strategies does he suggest for picking engaging topics?
Yeah, that's a good question.
One that really resonated with me is what he calls leveraging your passions.
Okay.
He argues that the most captivating conversations come from, like, genuine enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Passion is contagious.
Exactly. He encourages people to, like, identify the things that truly light them up, whether it's a hobby, a book, a cause, or even just a random fact that, like, fascinates them.
But what if my passions are, like, kind of geeky or unconventional?
Right.
Won't that, like, turn people off?
Riker addresses that too.
He does.
He says that even niche topics can be made relatable
Okay.
if you find the right angle. It's all about framing the topic in a way that connects to a broader human experience.
So it's not about, like, dumbing down your passions.
No.
It's about finding a way to share them so that other people can understand and connect with them.
Yeah, and he gives this great exercise.
What's that?
Take a few minutes each day to think about your passions, and then challenge yourself to figure out how to make each one relatable.
Okay.
To someone who might not share that specific interest.
I love that.
Right.
So finding the right topic is important.
Yeah.
But there's, like, more to being a good conversationalist.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about, like, picking the right subject.
Riker stresses that being a great conversationalist isn't just about talking.
Right.
It's also about listening.
Yeah, that's so true.
And not just passively listening, but actively engaging with what the other person is saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about that part.
They do. They do.
It's easy to get caught up in, like, what you're going to say next, and you're not really paying attention.
Riker emphasizes active listening, which involves, like, truly paying attention, asking clarifying questions, and showing genuine interest.
Yeah.
It's about making the other person feel heard and understood.
It seems like that's, like, key to building real rapport.
Exactly. And he even gives some practical tips for becoming a better listener.
Like what?
Things like paraphrasing to make sure you understand.
Okay.
Asking open-ended questions. And using nonverbal cues like eye contact and nodding.
Those are all good.
Right. It's not rocket science, but it makes a difference.
Yeah, it's like you're showing them that you're actually present in the conversation.
Exactly.
You're not just waiting for your turn to talk.
I'm realizing, like, all these different elements of conversation.
Yeah.
Your voice, the topics you choose, how you listen, they're all connected.
They all work together.
And that brings us to another one of Riker's key points.
Okay.
He says, mastering conversation is an ongoing journey.
Oh, for sure.
It's a skill that you continuously refine and develop.
It's not like you just like read a book and then you're done.
Right,
It's
exactly.
something you have to keep working at.
He stresses that it's about training your subconscious
Yeah.
to communicate in a more captivating way.
Uh-huh.
And that takes time and effort.
He encourages people to be patient with themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Because it can be frustrating to like try new techniques and not see results right away.
Absolutely.
You're like, why isn't this working?
Right, but the key is to keep practicing, keep experimenting until these techniques become second nature.
Yeah, like anything else you learn.
And that's where his focus on like real-world application comes in.
Okay.
He doesn't just want you to understand these concepts.
Right.
He wants you to embody them.
He wants you to like go out there and use them.
Exactly. Get out there and talk to people.
So, okay, Riker's given us all these techniques, these strategies for
Yeah.
becoming better conversationalists,
Yeah.
but what's the ultimate goal here?
Right.
Like, what are we trying to achieve?
Well, Riker argues that mastering conversation is about more than just like impressing people or winning arguments. It's about connecting with others on a deeper level,
Okay.
creating genuine relationships, and ultimately living a more fulfilling and impactful life.
So it's about using conversation as a tool for personal growth
Yes.
and transformation.
I love that.
It's not just about like small talk.
No.
It's about something much bigger.
And he really emphasizes that these techniques are not about manipulation.
Okay, good.
They're about becoming the best, most authentic version of yourself.
I like that a lot.
Right. Like it's about being genuine, being real.
So what are some of the specific ways that these skills can help us in our daily lives?
Riker gives a lot of examples,
Mm-hmm.
but I think one of the most powerful is how these skills can help us navigate difficult conversations,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
like those tough talks with a partner, a boss, or even a family member.
Yeah, those are never fun,
Right, exactly.
but they're necessary.
He talks about using these techniques to de-escalate conflict,
Okay.
build empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and find common ground.
So instead of getting defensive or
Right.
shutting down,
Yeah.
we can use these skills to like stay calm, listen actively,
Yes.
and steer the conversation towards a more positive resolution.
Exactly. And he even gives specific phrases and techniques for doing just that.
This is fascinating. I'm starting to see how like learning to master conversation can be a real game changer
Right.
in so many areas of life.
It really can.
Not just in like social situations, but in our personal and professional lives as well.
And that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive.
All right.
But don't worry,
Okay.
there's still more to uncover.
Okay.
We'll be back in part 3 to explore some of Riker's most surprising insights
Ooh, can't wait.
into the transformative power of
Okay.
charismatic conversation.
All right, I'm ready for it. Okay, so we're back for the final part of this deep dive
Yeah.
into Dave Riker's course on conversation.
It's been quite a journey. Like, we've gone through a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about like using your voice the right way, you know, managing the flow of conversations,
Right.
picking the right topics. But there's this other layer that Riker gets into
Okay.
that I think is really like fascinating.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It's this idea that our beliefs about ourselves can actually sabotage us,
Oh, interesting.
like prevent us from actually being good at conversation.
Okay.
It's like, even if we know all the right techniques,
Right.
if we don't believe in ourselves, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He talks about these limiting beliefs
Oh, yeah, the limiting beliefs.
that hold us back. You know, we think things like, I'm just not a naturally charismatic person.
I am too shy.
I'm awkward. I could never do that.
Exactly. And those thoughts can be so loud
They really can. They can take over.
and prevents us from even trying.
So how do you deal with those? Well, Riker says you have to actively challenge them.
Okay.
It's like having a debate with your inner critic. You know,
Interesting.
instead of just letting those negative thoughts run wild,
Yeah, just letting them
to
win.
confront them head on.
You fight back.
You're like, no, that's not true.
I like that.
And then he suggests replacing those negative thoughts with positive affirmations.
No affirmations.
So instead of thinking, I'm not charismatic, you would say to yourself, I am a captivating and engaging conversationalist.
Right. Okay. I can see how that would be helpful.
I mean, it sounds kind of cheesy.
Yeah, it does a little bit, yeah.
Like, am I supposed to walk around chanting affirmations all day long?
But, I mean, there's something to be said for, like, the power of positive thinking.
Yeah, I guess so.
And Riker really emphasizes repetition
Okay.
and practice.
So it's not just about, like, thinking positive thoughts.
Huh.
It's about embodying them.
Living them, yeah.
So it's like proving those limiting beliefs wrong through action.
Right.
Like, the more I use these techniques successfully, the less power those negative thoughts will have over me.
Exactly. It's like building a muscle.
Okay.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
I like that.
And as you see those positive results,
Yeah.
those limiting beliefs naturally start to fade.
So it's really about this deeper shift in mindset. It's
Yeah.
not just about learning a set of techniques.
It's about changing the way you see yourself.
And Riker ends the course with this, like, really inspiring message.
Okay, what's that?
He reminds us that our voice is powerful,
Yeah.
that it can be used to connect with others, inspire change, and even shape our own reality.
Wow, that's pretty profound.
It is.
So it's like mastering conversation isn't just about small talk.
No, it's about so much more than that.
It's about stepping into your power as a communicator.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that it's not about tricks or manipulation.
Good, I like that.
It's about being authentic.
Being yourself.
Yeah, finding your own unique style.
So where do we go from here? Like
Yeah.
for our listeners who are, inspired.
Yeah, who are ready to take action.
What's the next step?
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
Becoming a master conversationalist.
You're always learning, always growing.
It's about continuous learning, experimentation,
Trying new things.
and refinement.
And remembering that even small changes can make a big difference.
Like, just integrating one new technique
Right.
can have a huge impact on your conversations.
Yeah, it's not about trying to do everything at once.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Dave Riker's course,
Yeah?
I want you to imagine approaching every conversation with confidence, knowing that you have the tools to captivate your listeners and leave a lasting impression.
That's a great image.
Your voice has the power to connect, inspire, and create change.
Use it wisely.
Keep exploring these techniques and, most importantly, have fun with it.
Yeah, conversation should be enjoyable.
Exactly. It's about connecting with people, sharing ideas, and creating something meaningful together.
Well said.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep those conversations flowing.